Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers, connecting with makers from all around the world. Here's your hosts, Jamie Page, Chris Cute, and now, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening. Joins me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
How you doing?
And Mr. Jamie Page.
How you doing?
Oh, was that all right? Was that okay for an opener? There we go.
And the crowd went wild. Yeah, Richard, it was fine.
Excellent. So, what have you guys been up to this week anyway? Because we haven't hardly spoken. I'm assuming we've all been really busy, or just ignoring each other.
Ignoring you. Yeah, I've just been ignoring you guys.
That's cool. That's fun.
That's
This is honest.
it. Yeah.
Honestly, not much. Puttering around the house. You know, I even went through the point where I pretended I was going on a vacation and started down here, and then wound up in the exotic land of my living room upstairs, and then I traveled to the great bedroom of the world. you know,
Got a ton of sand delivered for it all over the driveway.
I'm just doing what everybody else is doing, trying not to bounce off the walls you see around me. So that's what I've been busy doing.
Awesome. Actually, Jamie, you remind me that the whole getting the sand delivered. I remember as a student, there was a couple of the people that lived in the house that I lived in Bristol. They lived the previous year. They lived in a house with a really dodgy landlord. Like, you know, that the stereotypical student landlord. The whole place is a mess. It hasn't been decorated for 20 years, and basically everyone's living in a bucket squat. And so the house. 6 years or 6 students in a house for a year all basically went, well, we're going to lose our deposits like we always are, and we're not going to get it back. The house isn't going to get any worse. So in order to basically get our money's worth out of our deposit and sort of get one over on the landlord, decided to have an end of year moving out party, but they decided they were going to theme it as a beach party. So they literally got a lorry load of sand delivered to this house, and they just emptied it all over the ground floor of the house, and the whole of the house ground floor was like 2 inches deep in sand. And then all of the mates over for a beach party.
It weren't Vivian, Rick, Neil, and
it wasn't, but it was that. There was that kind of scenario though. It's like, well, we're not getting our deposit back, and we'll get you back for it.
Let's make it worth it.
Yeah, basically.
What have you been doing, Jamie?
what have I been doing? Not a lot, really. Been turning, scrolling. That's about it, really.
Puttering about. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorting out the back garden, upgrading the bar in the back garden.
Oh, there's my boy. I knew he was in there somewhere.
I've got to prepare for when Wayne the Woodturner gets here.
Yeah.
Evidently, him and my dad want to have long, lengthy conversations about army days.
That'll take some
sandbag and
that'll take some beers and cocktails. Yeah, why not? Did you say over a sandbag? That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's the old swinging the lantern with
I know.
I put up a sandbag. Yeah.
I thought it was a cocktail.
No. But I'm sure people listening to this are thinking, you've got a bar in your back. Literally, I've seen it. I've been there. Jamie has a bar. He built a bar in his back garden next to the swimming pool. Right? I know that sounds. The
swimming pool hasn't broken yet.
I don't see the problem with that. It's like, I don't know why that's so unusual.
It's quite different. It's not the sort of thing that necessarily you'd associate with Jamie, perhaps. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but literally, you go to Jamie's house, and you go, oh, I'm at Jamie's house. And then, hang on, he's got a bar and a swimming pool in the back garden. He literally has.
And it's got a TV in it. So for the people that are on YouTube, look.
It's like a
nice.
Proper little tiki bar.
A little tiki hut. Yeah, man.
It's got a tap on it as well, look.
Oh, I'm coming over sooner than I thought.
It's an actual.
Is the keg full?
There's no keg attached to it at the moment. We've got to get that sorted.
No, I can help with that.
Bring it over in your hand luggage.
I'm going to help kill it when I'm there, so I may as well buy a new one. Anyway, all right. What about you, Richard?
The whole week, what have I been up to? I've had a couple of projects. I've actually had a couple of client jobs to do, which is nice given the current situation. Just little projects I can get on with in the workshop, and basically deliver just like small things. One of them was a dog bed, which is the box, really, isn't it? But it kind of came from that came the idea for tonight's sort of topic, actually, which is the scrapwood stuff, because the client in question, I've done a few bits for them before. They're quite into that sort of rustic, cobbled together from scaffolding boards sort of
appearance,
more industrial sort of appearance rather than the fine,
the refined,
fine woodworking. Which is great for me, obviously, because cobbled together and fine joinery, slightly different ends of the spectrum. But yeah, that was one of the things I've been working on.
I like that kind of work. It's easy. It's easy, and if you do it correctly, it can look actually very pleasing in the right setting. So I don't mind doing that. That's just you can knock those out pretty quick.
I'm not quite sure I would agree 100%. I love doing it, actually, but only from the point of view of I just happen to have these scaffolding boards. I hate working with scaffolding boards and pallets and things like that, because playing the nail lottery is never fun.
No,
because those tickets can be quite expensive. But these were actually scaffold boards I'd used for something else years ago, and they've been in storage for literally 8 years, and so all that kind of aggravation had been done. But I wouldn't say easy, but it presents its own set of challenges.
Yeah,
because I didn't bother, mostly because I'm lazy, if I'm honest, but I didn't bother planing and thicknessing these scaffolding boards. So they were quite chunky, and they got twists, and they got a bit of warps, and I actually finger jointed the corners. So to get all that to pull together and line up, it's got its own challenges. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. Now that you say that, and you're telling me the boards were warped, that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's not difficult. It's just a different challenge. Like if you'd done it out of plywood, it would have been a lot less challenging for that height. But
Gotcha.
It's kind of weird. So that was kind of what got me into scrapwood stuff, because I'd literally been scratching around trying to find things, because I've had problems getting materials from suppliers as well. That's the other thing. It's not just about I can knock it up in the workshop and deliver it, but if I can't get the materials, that's actually a side issue.
That's a line of topic I had to talk about this evening as well. But we have questions. Nobody's surprised.
I didn't doubt that for 1 second. Actually, I think it was Andy put some questions on the Facebook page, didn't he, for us to?
That would be our man.
Do that. But I wouldn't put that down as a random listener question. That's
No, I didn't say random. I just said we have questions.
Yes, you did. Correct. I normally ask you though if we've got any random listener questions.
Yeah. Anyway, let's start this out, because he actually starts out the conversation pretty good. His first question is, he's obviously he's going to say one maker's trash might be another maker's freaking treasure. So how are we defining scraps? Anybody want to take that up, or I can if you'd rather. Me.
You start. You started it.
No, Jamie's got an idea. Go ahead, Jamie.
I don't think anything can be defined as scrap these days. I mean, you've just got to look at what some people make with sawdust. Some people get sawdust these days, mix it up with a bit of resin, turn it on a lathe, and the thing comes out looking absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. They're making spheres, they're making eggs, they're making whatever.
I turned a couple pens.
Right. Even pens, and then you're reusing the shavings from the shavings and making another pen.
Yeah, exactly.
So
is that though? Is that scrap wood, or is that just another new material? So, and there's a pure question. I'm not trying to steer this or anything.
My honest answer to that would be the latter, because I wouldn't define that as scrap wood. I would
Yeah.
I would define that as a different source of supplies.
Yeah.
I mean, that was sort of
Rabbit
my
bedding.
Scrap wood in my book is this. Okay, look, if I have a big old 4x8 sheet of plywood, and I only need half of it, I need to cut it down to 4x4, and I have half left. The half that's left, I don't consider scrap wood. Okay, it's a very large piece of plywood. That's still, in my opinion, that goes back into my normal stock. My new stuff that I have that's ready to be used for new stuff. Now, if I only have to cut like 6 feet from that plywood, and that's going to leave me 2 feet of plywood at the end, that 2-foot piece of plywood, that's scrap wood. Because I can't think of any kind of purpose that I would use it for now, but I just know somewhere in the future I'm going to have to make a jig or something's going to come up, and that 2-foot wide by 4-foot long piece of plywood is going to be worth a darn. So it's, in my opinion, scrap wood is anything that's leftover cuts that don't have what you might consider a possible immediate use.
So for me, being able to use a scroll saw, excuse me, that's not COVD or whatever it's called.
Side note, as anyone, put your hands up, right? If you, on any normal day, cough and clear your throat and don't give it a second thought, but for the last 2 weeks, you've gone just for that split second. It's weird. It's so weird. Sorry, Jamie.
Right. So, being a scroller, I've got a piece of wood here, right, which is about 1.5 inches square, and it's about 2 inches long.
Right.
Now, I can make something with that. I can make ornaments that are compound cut. I can even go smaller than that and still make stuff out of it and do compound cut pieces. It's amazing how small you can go whilst working with a scroll saw.
All right. Well, yeah, you're right. You know what? And Jamie, that's perfectly useful. I agree with you. Especially if it's nice wood, that would be something to hang on to, and that's as opposed to throw in the burn pile. Chris, father of Dragon Tales, just had a question for me. And where did it go? Oh, there it is. So, Chris, is that scrap from the workpiece or is it scrap wood? Honestly, Chris, I see them as one and the same. I don't title anything scrap until, like I said, until I see that I'm not going to have any sort of logical use for it at the moment, But I mean, if I've got a 4x4 piece of plywood that was a cut off from something that I actually needed, then I'm hanging on to that. I mean, I don't consider that scrap wood because I know somewhere in the future I may have a larger project to do, and I hang on to that. That goes back into my new wood file. But a 2-foot wide by 4-foot long piece of plywood, 3/4 inch, what are you going to use that for? Make it like making a very narrow dining room, hall table? I mean, so it becomes scrap wood. They're one and the same is my answer to that, Chris. But, everybody has their own definitions. It's, make your own.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think is the key, Chris, because I've got sort of 2 definitions, really, is that nothing scrap wood is either firewood or it's usable for something. And even then, as the turners out there will agree, you can pull some pretty nice things out of firewood. Mm-hmm. And actually, this afternoon, today, another little sideline. There'll be a lot of these tonight. Kat and Mini Noodle were making one of these bee hotels. Do you know what a bee hotel is?
Yeah, I know.
Like an open-fronted bird box that's wedged in with sticks and things with holes in that bees can go and live in. Anyway, so making that, and I'm pulling out things literally from the wood box and looking at, that's got a beautiful bit of spalting on that. And I'm like, no, stop it, put it back. That's the burn when it's cold. So you can literally use anything. But for me, generally, scrap wood, I would call something. So I would say to you, I made this thing and it was completely out of scrap wood. Under that sort of definition, it would be anything that I didn't specifically buy the material to do that project. So going back to your sheet of plywood, Chris, if I need to buy a sheet of plywood for something,
Right.
and I only use half of it, yes, I can absolutely use that leftover plywood. That automatically becomes scrap wood if I then make something else from it. Do you see what I mean? It's
a
bit of a.
You got to make something out of it before the pieces that fall off of it become scrap.
Yeah. So if I built a like one project I've got in mind, which probably be a video, but it's something I'm mulling over working on at the moment, is a new tool cabinet, like on the back of my bench. It's actually going to be a cabinet with opening doors, and I've got plywood for that. Now, if I didn't, I'd have to go out and buy the plywood. So that would be a proper job project. But I'm actually going to use bits and pieces cobbled over lots of different projects. So it's already there. It's scrap wood. It's stuff I haven't got to go out and buy it specifically from a supplier for that job.
Well, there is. I mean, I'm going to interrupt you because I think there's for me. Now, anybody else can feel differently. It's fine. Like I said, this is all coming from your own perspective and your own happiness in your own shop. But for me, there is scrap wood that makes me yay, scrap wood, and then there's scrap wood. And the scrap wood that makes me smile. When I built my lathe, I built my lathe sits on a big stand, and inside that stand is all of the nice woods that I have accumulated that I can use for turning projects, and the nice maple and walnut, and that kind of wood cutoffs that I get from other projects that I may be making automatically go on the lathe. And like the piece that Jamie held up, that what was it, like 2-inch long by 1.5 square piece. I mean, I would hang on to that absolutely, because I can put that on a lathe, and maybe I've got a project where I'm building like just a small keepsake box out of like some really nice wood, but I need a finial. I grab that piece, put it on the lathe, and I turn a finial from it. So I don't throw that kind of stuff away. The other kind of scrap wood that I'm just talking about is like small pieces of plywood, pine, stuff that's just, it's not exciting, but you hang on to it because, you may actually have a physical use for it. But there are times that I go through my scrap bin because it just, I'll be honest, I'm a wood hoarder, so it gets overloaded, and I have to make decisions. Then I go make a fire, but I don't make a fire out of the maple and the birch and the walnut. I go make a fire out of the pine and the plywood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So do you think that your scrap wood kind of depends on how you look at the actual wood? So for argument's sake, me, when I was doing that project for Pam last week,
right,
that I had that the maple that came from a square block of inch thick maple,
right.
Now I made the circle from that square, right, and then trued it up, scrolled it out, blah blah blah. Now I've kept the outside because I know that I can make something out of them corners.
Of the
what it will be, I don't know. I mean, but I know that there's enough meat there to do something with it. Now, if I was to turn away a bit of plywood, just like Chris said, I wouldn't think twice about burning them corners.
No, it's like, I have like basically 3 bins in my shop that and they all do different things. The bin that I was just talking about that's underneath my lathe, not really a bin. I mean, that's kind of like a scrap wood pile that I hang on to because it's nice wood. Then I have the scrap wood pile where I look at a piece and I go, hey, you know what? Future use. You never know. And I throw it in that one. And then there's projects where you're doing like you're cutting the corners off a piece of plywood. And then I have a bin that goes, nope, that's automatically going to get burned. And I sort my stuff as I go along. That way it doesn't get crazy. And I always know when I need to go through and sort my stuff out and go have a fire. So it doesn't get too out of control. But honestly, my next video is going to be a scrap wood video because the only thing I've done in my shop so far is to clean out my scrap wood buckets. And it's funny that we brought this topic up today because I did that a week and a half ago. And my entire workbench is lined up with nothing but pieces of scrap wood that, I was in that, I might be able to use that mode, and I just collected all like way too much of it.
Yeah.
So it's time to look at the wood and go, all right, you got to make something, because if you can't make something, we need to clean the shop, one way or another. So it's like, let's do it.
Yeah.
I've been seeing quite a few people on like places like Instagram clearing out they're at home, they're finding jobs to do things, and they've been doing exactly that, clearing out, and all these big piles of scrap wood have been appearing. But Jamie, you're talking about those little roundy corners from bowl blank things. When we went to the Yandles show last September, turning pens, and at Yandles they have these big bins that are maybe 5 foot square by about 4 foot or 3 foot deep, huge wooden, basically palletized cubes, and they fill them up with those little corners. So when they get all their planks in, they might have 2-inch thick planks. They'll cut all their bowl blanks of Purple Heart and Paduke and Walnut and Maple, and some really those blanks, all those pen blanks that you sent over to us for Make with Makers last year, Chris.
Yeah,
all those kind of woods. They have all these rough sawn planks, and they keep them there, and they sell them all off for like 40-50p each. And you can get at least 2 pen blanks, decent size, not just little ones, but like the long single-bodied pen blanks, so like epsilon kind of length, 2-3 inches, out of these corners,
cutoffs,
and easily make them. And it was quite funny because I'd got these corners that I'd already cut into 2 nice big pen blanks, and they're huge. They're like an inch square. And rather than put them on the lathe and do it like you'd normally drill a pen blank, I'd literally just put it in a cordless drill, clamped it onto the bed of the lathe, and just free-handed this hole through it so I could put in a Sierra tube. And this guy was going mad because he was like, that's a Purple Heart pen blank there. They're like £1.75 each. I was like, mate, these are 30p for 2 out of the scrap bin. Go fill your boots. It's normally, you go and buy a pack of pen blanks in Paduke, and you pay a couple of quid because it's all like nicely sized and nicely planed, and like, no, don't worry about that.
Well, that's what it is. You're paying for somebody else to do all the planing and the cutting, and all that sort of stuff.
But also in this instance, you're paying for somebody else's offcuts, because they literally are the corner bits that Yandles are going to throw away, and rather than them burn it, they'd rather you pay 20p for it. And
that's why you hear so many suggestions about people saying, if you're looking for recyclable wood or scrap wood that you can actually use for different things, people are always on, go to a cabinet shop, because cabinet shops use quality wood, and their offcuts are actually worth having, because they don't even want to try to process that wood and resell it. Just that's not their line of work, so they're willing to let you take it for free. I mean, we're not Reclaimed Audio here, but I mean, at least I know that much.
But we are tight with our money, so it's the same ends, but for a different purpose. I went and I bought I think it was a plank of Zebrano. It was about 1 3/4 inches thick, maybe 6 foot long, 8 or 9 inches wide. It was a reasonable size bit, and I got a really good deal on eBay. And it turned out you collection only. It was only just up the road, and the reason this place was getting rid of it was the workshop was closing down. They were downsizing and moving to a different place. I went up there, bought this plank, and they're like, "What? Is there anything else you want while you're here?" Veneers. I got all those veneers, Jamie.
Yeah.
They would just like give us 20 quid and go, just take as much as you can. And I'm not joking. These were on huge, like massive, long strips. I had to roll them up, like coil these veneers up and roll them in the back of the van. And they were literally like 3 foot diameter coils of all these veneers. They just went, we're going to have to leave it here for the farmer because we can't take it with us. We've got to be out in 2 days.
I'm glad you just reminded me that I've got some.
Yeah, just literally giving it away.
All right, we got another question.
I'd forgotten we'd even got other questions. Sorry.
Let's move along. Second question was, unless it's immediately at the end of another project, is having scrap whatever. I mean, because there's scrap metal too. I mean, people have metal bins. Is having scrap really just a sign of being a hoarder, a maker hoarder? I'm going to say no.
No.
And only for me. I mean, other people may look at it differently, but for me, because I literally try to take the time to make something from the scrap that I've collected. However, it just depends on how clever I can be as to how much of it I can actually put to purpose. So no, I mean, I kind of know what just needs to just get thrown away, and I just kind of hang on to like those. Hey, you never know, and that goes in the pile I save. So I don't think so, Andy, but I mean, I don't know if there's different perspectives.
You won't believe how many pieces of pen blank size woods that I've got, where I've ended up cutting them down to pen blank sizes.
And you don't even turn pens, Jamie.
Not anymore. I've actually restarted turning pens. I've got a few pen kits. But originally I started doing it. That's why with all the woods that I've got, I cut down to pen blank sizes.
I love to turn
pens. And then I stopped because I've got done a load of acrylic pens and no one wanted wooden pens, and I was like, yeah.
They go in phases, don't they? Think like fashions and
so, Richard, I know better than to ask, but I'll ask you anyway because I know you have quite a stash. But do you consider yourself a wood hoarder because you hang on to some scrap wood?
No, I genuinely don't. And my rationale behind that is actually my space is quite limited in the workshop.
That's why I knew that you probably weren't.
I do have, though, to be fair, I do have a large storage facility, which is a real pain to get. It's not at hand. I've got a plan to. That's where all these scaffolding boards were, and I've got solid oak kitchen door, cupboard doors, and stuff, and nice big planks there. But it's about forward planning. Anyway, that's an aside. My rationale for not being a hoarder is it's a limited space, but also I tend to hang on to things until either something better comes along. So let's say I've got, I don't know, a 2 square feet. What was that? What was that?
I don't. It was his Easter present, apparently. Oh, it's the penguin again. It's the penguin.
What's he doing? Took my eye off the ball then. I might have like a piece of plywood, just cheap plywood, shuttering ply, and I might then have a job where I'll keep it. I haven't really got a use for it, but it's not taking up a huge amount of room. I'll hang on to it until such times as like a nicer bit of ply comes on. Do you know what I mean? And then I'll be like, I'll keep the nicer one, or until you have too much and then it gets burnt. Right, I hear you. Rotate it out, and it's the same with the timbers as well. As soon as the space in which something like that takes up becomes more valuable than the thing taking up the space, it goes. And generally that's winter when the fire goes on, and just this question may take us longer.
I don't think that being a hoarder is a bad thing. Because you've got to look at the Godfather and making Jimmy the Rester, and look at the example we set.
Oh my God! You want to talk about a dude who hoards stuff? When you get a chance, if you haven't been there, come to America and go visit Jimmy at his farm, and then tell me he's not a hoarder. Anyway, all right. This next question is we could answer for quite some time, so I'll ask it last, and then we can move on to whatever you guys want to talk about. I want to ask this in a different way, though, Andy. Okay, I want to ask it in 2 different ways. All right, so I'm going to change one thing. What types of things that you can recall have you made out of scrap wood? So, I mean, first of all, I know that's probably like a super long list, but I mean, if you can nail it down to like the 5 things that come to mind that maybe you liked. That the way it came out. I mean, what have you made? I mean, because we're all talking about scrap wood today, and we're talking about uses for it. So, what have you made? Let's give some people some examples.
Right, and also people in the chat starts telling us what you've been making as well. Because I'm genuinely because all these ideas can be swapped for things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the tiger that I've done, the scroll saw, the backers for them were scrap wood. They actually came off the back of a
Lorry.
Back of a lorry. I didn't do it. There's actually video footage of Richard cutting them as well.
When the driver wasn't around to look. Yeah.
Hanging off the back of a lorry with a saw.
They actually come off the back of a chest of drawers, a big chest of drawers.
Nice.
So I would consider that scrap. Yeah, they come off there and just painted black.
And anything? I mean, Jimmy, have you turned anything out of scrap wood that you can remember that you went, oh yeah, I've got that piece of this and I could use it for this?
Not to my recollection, I don't think.
But then, Jamie, you tend to turn things from quite nice blanks, don't you?
I tend to normally I tend to buy kind of exotic blanks, usually from Yandles or Dale gets them quite cheap from a place up north somewhere.
So, I mean, just from the lay, I mean, I the first thing that springs to mind are various tool parts, rehandling hammers. I seem to have this weird fetish for handling hammers. That's not a euphemism. But yeah, I'll pick up an old hammerhead at a car boot sale, soak it in vinegar for a week, dust it down, and put a handle on it out of a bit of scrap wood that's left over from something else. Chisel handles and file handles on the lathe, they're all from just scrap wood. Many from woods of unknown species and origin. Pens are a good one. Make some nice pens. I actually made a couple of pens from some rotten railway sleepers that are local to where we walk the dog. Literally just in the ground. They've been in the ground for 100 years plus. Pulled them up. Turned pens out of those. What else? I'm looking at it on all like a
I know that Jake Thompson, he does he saves all his scraps, and at the end of the year he does a massive glue up and makes a cutting board, and then he donates it to raise money for Make-A-Wish.
Nice.
So, yeah.
All right, I got some things that have been on the chat. I've been trying to keep up with them here. I'm trying to write this last one down before I forget it. Well, I'll start with the last one I just wrote down. But
Chris Bob. Oh, go on a minute.
No, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them so far. So go ahead if you want.
I was just going to say, Chris Dragontail Turnings. He turned a nice little bowl for Susie out of a nice bit of firewood.
That's nice.
So
and
sometimes it's kind of funny, really, when it comes to firewood, because you see what the bowl or whatever it is that they make out of firewood, and you see how nice it turns out, and you think that was going to end up on the fire.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's. I don't know how to pronounce this gentleman's handle. It's OOJAGAPIVA. Ujaga. Dude. I don't know. Anyway, he said he. What, Richard? Go.
No, you go ahead, because either someone will write it, or I'll look at his Instagram handle. I know he's an Australian.
Just call him Dave.
Well, he glues up stuff and makes laminated bowl blanks for turning. So that's a great idea for scrap wood, especially little pieces. Peter Miller said he makes.
He's got to be Australian. He's calling himself Damo.
Peter Miller said he's made coasters. He's made cutting boards out of little pieces of things. That's a great idea too, Peter. Mr. Pugh just said he used up some plywood recently and made some new shelving for himself. Emma, she said she made little egg cups using scraps. And SK Crafts said a while ago that he's made a lot of bird boxes out of scrap wood too. So I mean, there is a use for it. I mean, some of us have a reason to hang on to it. So call us hoarders if you like, but you might not get your bird box.
And not only that, this is the other thing I think that I genuinely overlook this all the time with scrap woods and having bits of scrap wood. It's a good time to practice.
Exactly.
with new materials. So particularly when you're like hard up, or you've got more important things to spend your money on. It's probably a more pleasant way to put it. You go from working pine wood or pallets or whatever you can lay your hands on to a nice little bit of
that
nice timber, and it reacts differently, and
I think I've mentioned that in every scrap wood video I've done, and I've done 4 or 5 scrap wood videos on my channel, and I've always said that scrap wood, even if you screw it up, who cares? It's it's great for prototyping, if nothing else. I mean, you've got an idea in your head, and you're wondering if it will work. You got a pile of scrap wood. Use the scrap wood and see if the idea works before you start using the maple and the mahogany, and the walnuts. Make sure it works first. And once you go, oh, wow, hey, that works. Or you go, oh, hey, I'm a dummy. That goes on the fire. It's like, it's one of those things. It's a very worry-free material to work with. Because, if what's the worst that's going to happen? You got to throw it away anyway, right? But you hung on to it for a reason. So what the heck? Exactly.
Yeah, and also those little jobs. You always just need a little piece for something, whether it's a new chisel handle or a wedge to hold the door open, or a block to hit the bit of wood with a metal hammer. Like an in between bit. There's just so many disposable uses, I guess, is the way of putting it across, and not being scared to mess around and experiment.
All right, the second version of this question, which was actually Andy's original question, he wants to know, and again, please, out in the chat, please let us know, what is the best thing you've made out of something you at first considered scrap wood? And best, I guess, is a relative term. What is it? What is the nicest thing that you remember that puts a smile on your face that you've ever made out of scrap wood? I've made a lot of scrap wood stuff, so that's going to be a hard one for me. But Richard, if you got something, go.
The most recent one, the first one that sprung to mind because it was the most recent one, I think I showed it the other week, was that rawhide mallet that I made.
That actually turned out really well. Yeah.
I made 2 because I made one out with an oak handle, and then I made it. Is it still in there? But I've actually got 2 now because I made a second one and I videoed the second version of it. So I've actually got 2, and they were both made from basically scraps, because although I bought the leather on eBay, they were just all random shapes and scraps that someone else who was into leather working had gone, oh, I've got too much leather, and flogged it on eBay, and I went and bought it. So the leather was scrap, but then the timber was as well. And I'm just looking down the bottom there. It was I used a piece of sapele. I think I say it in the video. A piece of sapele from a windowsill blank that I'd purchased to do a window repair for a client. Mm-hmm. And because it's hardwood, you can only buy it in certain lengths, and there's a minimum length. I think the minimum length you could buy at a time was like 6 feet. And it was like a 4-foot window, so I had 2 foot left, or whatever it was. I had it left over, and I cut it off, and there you go, handle for hammer. So that literally, both ends of that was.
Jamie, what about you? Would it be that tiger, or do you have something?
Yeah,
else?
I'm gonna have to say the tiger, but I completely forgot about this. Do you guys remember the post box that I done?
Yes. Oh, yes. That actually came out brilliant.
Some of that was made out of scrap MDF.
So there was a mixture of new and old, new and scrap.
It had new battens from wood, but most of that was scrap MDF.
Well, that's kind of why I hang on to some of that scrap wood I have, and it's because you'll be doing a project, like for instance, talking about that keepsake box that I was talking about earlier. You make a keepsake box on it, and you look at it, and you go, it needs a finial, and then you go over to the scrap wood that you have by my lathe, and I pick up a piece that's is so long, and I look at the color, and I go, yeah, that'll work really well, and then I turn a finial. So it's a mixture of new and scrap, but it turns out beautiful because you're dealing with nice material. Most of my just scrap wood. I think the nicest thing I ever made out of that kind of stuff was I made a a 3-bottle wine holder for my wife's friend. And it was kind of I don't know if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this. If you're not, I'll try to describe it to you. It ended up it was it was flat on the bottom, but it had a 45-degree kind of coming off on the end of it. And then underneath that 45-degree piece of wood, there was a wedge, and another triangle that was actually supporting the piece that was above it. Drilled holes, routed them out, sanded it. I actually used the screws on that project, and and cut out a little wine glass out of that wedge that supports the top part. And when you take the wine bottles, you put them in the hole, and they all tilt in the same direction, and they're corked down, keeping the cork moist. And my wife's friend, what my wife says, that she freaking absolutely loves that thing. I was going to stain it, but she wanted me to paint it to match her decor. So I ended up painting it for her, but apparently she likes it. But that was pretty much the nicest thing I've ever made out of just, like pine, that was in there. I don't really have much else that I can actually brag about, because most of my scrap wood, except for the nice stuff that I save for my lathe, I use for shop projects. I use for jigs. I don't, a lot of my stuff, I just don't use for, public display, that kind of material. I just, when I need something, because I want, like, for instance, one of my videos I put out, I needed a little storage container to hold my glue bottles upside down. And so I just made, a typical little V, drilled 3 holes in it, put a little hole on there. So I have my, my little brush that I used to spread the glue, turned bottles upside down, done. Then I went and decided that I needed some place to organize my drill bits and the other accessories, the brushes, the metal brushes that I have from my drill press that I used to clean things up with. And I made a storage container out of that using nothing more than 2x4s, different, thicknesses. So it was kind of a step thing. So that, and you could put the accessories so you could see them coming down. And I stuck that underneath my drill press. Other than that, that's the kind of stuff I use my scrap wood for. The pine and the plywood and things of that nature. It's mostly just shop projects. Yeah.
See, I mean, this stuff here would technically be considered scrap wood. It's just pine.
Right.
I mean, yes, technically I did go out and specifically go and buy a length of inch.
Explain what that is for people listening, Jamie.
So this is what's called a compound cut on the scroll, a 3D compound cut on the scroll saw. So you look at it from one direction, it looks like a boat, and you spin it around, and then it looks like a diver on the other side.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, yes, I did go out and buy a length of, what was it, inch and a quarter, inch and a half long stock. But if you had, I don't know, 2.5 inches left,
you could do that.
Or whatever, you could do that. Now, if you had a full length of that, you could do a lot of them, which means that's a lot of leaving the kid alone on a scroll saw and making Christmas decorations.
Craft show stuff, because that kind of thing right there would sell at a craft show.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of something else, actually, for scrap wood, something being useful. And I don't know why I didn't think of it, because it was one of my recent videos, making your own edge bandings and inlay stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was thinking about that earlier.
That turns scrap wood into not just something more exciting, but it goes a long way as well. You only need a little bit, and you can stretch it out because you're gluing lots of little bits together. You stretch that out and add it into projects. Not only does it take the projects to a completely different dimension in terms of its perceived complexity,
right,
and aesthetics as well. You stretch out
and value depending on the wood you're using, right?
And
please tell me that you use your table saw to cut that veneer.
No, I didn't. No, not at all. No, so there were. I did it all on the miter saw, actually, because Hikoki had brought out a new cordless miter saw, and they lent me it to say, tell us what you think of it. And whilst I was playing around with it, I just cut all these little triangular wedges. But then they're actually sandwiched between actual veneers, so that veneers from what I was saying before that came from that workshop that was closing down. But I never bother really cutting my own veneers because I've got all sorts of kicking around. But no, I didn't use tape saw at all for that.
You can either go as small as pen blanks as well.
And and Peter Miller had a good thing. He says get a towel cutter, and you can use those small links and just cut your own wood dowels. And that's absolutely true. You can make your own dowels rather than go out and buying them. I mean, obviously, I don't know what dowels run in your neighborhood, but I mean, they don't cost me all that much money. But you know what? If I'm in a bind and I want to get something done, that's a great idea, Peter, because that would be a quick and useful way to get something done in your shop.
A good scrap project, actually, if you've got a pillar drill or the drill press and a half decent set of drill bits, and by that I mean in sharpness, they don't have to be the best quality, is go and get a piece or go and find a scrap piece of mild steel plate. It only needs to be 4 inches by 4 inches square, really. Doesn't have to be a big bit of steel plate at all. Drill a series of holes in there from your biggest drill bit down to your smallest drill bit, maybe a 1/4 inch, and you can make your own dowels with that.
Yeah,
just make a dowel plate, and you basically just cut thin square sticks, and then just pound them through the holes.
Yep,
and it'll make those square sticks round, and then because you've got the drills to drill the holes in the metal, you can use the drills to drill the holes in the wood that match those, and then you can use basically any bit of timber. Several times I've made my own dowels, and actually that dog bed that I did, I finger jointed the corners, and a couple of them were sort of a little bit not quite as tight as I wanted to hold them. So whilst it was still clamped, I then drilled down through the first 3 fingers on each 4 corners, top and bottom, and then doweled it.
Oh, got it.
To hold it all in place. But you make dowels out of for all sorts of purposes.
It's good stuff. And we're going to have to move on to see. I don't know if we have any shout outs today or not. I know I do. I don't know about you, Richard. But I did want to leave anybody who's out there who's a YouTuber with just a little bit of advice. And I don't, you can take this and leave it if you want. But with all of us being in, what we might say, stay at home mode. And if you're in the mood to go clear out your scrap bin, video it and then title your video Scrap Wood. And then whatever you want after that. YouTube, for some reason, loves scrap wood videos. I think I've got a funny feeling that it's a pretty highly searched for term on YouTube, because I have yet to put out a video on scrap wood that has gotten less than 45,000 views. That's the honest to God truth. And that's my lowest one. The highest one that I have has over 500,000. So if you want to title a video Scrap Wood and whatever you want to say after that, then put it out there. I think you're going to get some eyes on your videos. So just a little bit of help.
If it's got no scrap wood in it at all, have it like watching paint dry. Put scrap wood in the title, instant billionaire. The ad revenue just come flooding in.
No, I think you actually have to do a project out of scrap wood. It doesn't work like Richard says. What an idiot.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
clickbait.
Clickbait. No, I'm just saying my own experience. I don't know if it'll work for you or not. I'm just, hey, give it a go. What do you have to lose?
I tell you what, here's another use for scrap wood. Before we go off to it, I think this is possibly the most underutilized use for scrap wood, and scraps as in scrap metal if you're into metalworking, plastics if you're into leather, if you're whatever your material of choice is. Scrap your material of choice as a commodity, as a currency, an actual physical currency, because you go to places like Maker Central and you meet up with other makers and people swap shop stuff, and you literally can be used as a currency between makers. Because I guarantee you, if you are a pen maker and you meet up with a bowl maker, that bowl maker is going to want to turn some cool pens if you've got some nice blanks, and you can use their leftover blanks, like Jamie was saying with the corners, or if you're a leather worker, you meet a leather worker, you can use leather in your handles for your knives or whatever. There's all sorts of crossover in materials that we see all the time, that people can use. Brass as inlays. There's just a bazillion different options there. People are always willing to swap.
And like Caitlin said in the chat a little while ago, she used some scrap wood to make her maker coins.
Yeah.
So quite literally currency.
Yes.
The Flaming Turtle says you could always paint a bit of scrap wood. Then you got paint drying on scrap wood. Thanks, man. When this is over, that will be even more ridiculous. But right now, yeah, it's an idea. All right, Jimmy, I think it's time to let you sing, and just give me a chance. Give me a chance to get the headphones off. That's all I'm asking. Go right ahead.
All right. It's time for Jamie's Page. Ox in the Shop hit 10,000 subscribers today.
Good man. All right, Ox in the Shop. I love his logo, by the way. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome, isn't it? So I did actually come up with a t-shirt design for myself, very similar to that one, but we'll see if I actually decide to bring that out or not.
Awesome.
So anyway, I shall carry on. So you remember when I was saying about mentioning channels around 100 subscribers or so every time I come across one? Right, well, I'll come across another one. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised when I found out they only had around, I think they had less than 100 subscribers on me when I found out, but we got them over 100 in that said live stream. But the channel I'm going to shout out is Barry over at Real Simple Things. So that's REEL Simple Things. He's a little over 100 subscribers now. He does some absolutely awesome stuff over there. I've met him at Axminster, and yeah, he's a hell of a nice guy as well. So yeah, be sure to go and check out Barry over at Real Simple Things. Lastly, stickers. If you're going to make Essential, you're probably going to need stickers. So go to makersinternationalpodcast.com. Click on the little tab that says stickers, and then click on our picture. It'll take you to a website. Upload your files, and then you can get £20 off checkout for all your stickers. But you've got to remember, if you've used that website before with your email address, you've got to use another email address. It's one email, one use. Okay. So awesome. Yeah, that's that for James Bay. So my shout out goes to the Redsmith. And we're kind of sticking along this this theme of scrap, if you like. So he made a knife making tool. It's actually called Knife Making Tool, Building a Wire Brush and Buffing Wheel Station from Scraps.
Awesome.
He basically got hold of an old motor, gave it a bit of tender love and care, and sorted it all out and made a stand and all sorts. So yeah, Redsmith. Great.
Fantastic. I got a shout out today too. And this is not from a huge channel either. I mean, he has like, I think just under 2,000 subscribers, so it's not a small channel, but I mean, he's got a lot of good stuff on there. And I don't know if you're familiar, because I don't believe, and this, if I say this and we have met, then please forgive me because I don't recognize the name. The name of the channel is called Make It Mazio. Make It a Mazio. I know that. He's probably not even Italian, and I just really offended him. Anyway. But he did a really cool video this week. He did because he did his not being eggs being in short supply and not being able to get out, blah blah blah. He decided that he was going to do a video or just make some of his own. So he did his own video on making his own wooden Easter eggs, and these things turned out really cool. They were colorful, just like you would think an Easter egg would be, and I mean they came out really nice. Anyway, if you want to take a look, I'm sure he would appreciate it. It's Make It Mazio, Mazzeo. on YouTube. So give that a look, because that was actually really cool, and it was kind of cool the way he did it. So there you go. Richard, you got anything?
Very quickly, and it's more about Jamie's shout out for milestones and stuff like that. There's a guy under wherever in Australia, Shane Conlan, his name is. He's got the channel DIY for Knuckleheads. It's quite a large channel. It's about 130,000 subscribers, I think. But Shane's a really nice guy. He's been doing his channel for about 10 years now. He's one of the kind of old school long term YouTubers. He's been around, but he just hit the milestone of 20 million views.
Wow.
I mean, that's a lot of views, and that's spread over 10 years. Not only is he a really nice guy, but his channel is all about kind of DIY things. So he's got videos on painting tips and on changing fence posts, and he actually bought a house and did it up and did a whole series on that a few years ago. And it's not just about making things out of pallet woods and like home furniture stuff. There's a whole raft of different.
Do you know him?
Uncle Knackers.
I don't know. We've never met in person, but we've chatted over the years. We've chatted quite a bit online, in dribs and drabs, like you.
And I'll take Jake up on this suggestion. We should get him on the show. If there's enough.
I've spoken to him a few times on Instagram.
Well, if either of you could contact him, because I've never spoken to the man, so I don't know. But let's reach out and see if we can get him on here, because he sounds really cool.
Yeah, no, really cool guy. Big tea drinker as well, which is all.
Oh, brother,
all good.
He was actually in the UK, wasn't he?
Because that's
yes, he was.
important.
Yeah, big vacation.
That's the utmost important thing. So yeah, he drinks. He's a big tea drinker.
What's more important than tea? Hello,
I'd have no problem with
coffee.
Just you qualified that like it was like the most important thing ever. I'm like, I don't care if he drinks friggin' rum. He sounds cool.
He probably does drink rum as well. I don't know. We've never had kind of conversations about rum, but
okay. Well, whatever. Wrap this thing up for crying out loud.
Before we go, it would be a disservice if we didn't shout out our sponsors, because they are awesome, and they're awesome to you guys as much as they are to us. So, as always, tonight's show is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Wood Turners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad over at Maricraft Crafting, Pam from Highland Boxes, and also Steve Harneal at Harneal Media. He does all the legwork for the website. Sorry, Jamie. But if you want to find out more about either us or our sponsors, please do head on over to the website, makesinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, and all the information is there. I think also with the stickers as well, probably on there.
Under stickers.
That's it. I'm not sure if we're doing our free after party that we don't pay for because we're not on Patreon, but we do one anyway because, why not, all the rest of it. But if you are still listening, fantastic. If you're not, we'll say what we like about you probably after the show. So until next week when we talk about something else, who knows what, you all take care. Have a good week.
Take it easy, everybody.